Governor Tim Kaine today announced his intention to call a special session of the General Assembly to begin on Wednesday, August 19th. The session will focus solely on the required law changes to assure Virginia's compliance with the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Melendez-Diaz. In the case, the Supreme Court ruled that the burden was on the prosecution to present a witness rather than simply introduce a certificate of laboratory analysis into evidence in criminal trials. Now, this ruling will require forensic professionals to testify in more trials than had previously been required. And joining us now to discuss the issue is Delegate Todd Gilbert, a Republican representing the 15th District in Virginia, and he's an assistant Commonwealth attorney in Frederick County. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Now, Todd, explain to us how the system has worked in Virginia. Lab analysts, it sounds like, just furnish paperwork. They don't have to go to court?
Sure. When a piece of drug evidence, for instance, comes into a state laboratory, the state lab analyst will basically identify it, whether it is a piece of contraband or not. If they find it to be drugs, they'll prepare a lab sheet that says, this is cocaine or this is marijuana, and they'll send the lab sheet to the court. And that lab sheet traditionally has been used to prove to the court what that substance was. And now the Supreme Court has said that each and every defendant has a right to have the actual lab analyst present in court, as you said, which is proving very difficult for the practical side of the criminal justice system on a daily basis.
Has that already proven difficult? Are you getting defense attorneys that are saying, I want the lab analyst here? Are they already saying that?
Sure they are. And from what I hear throughout parts of Virginia, they are successfully getting cases dismissed, cases are being postponed, and gridlock and mayhem has basically ensued as a result of this decision. And certainly something needs to be done, if at all possible, to try and alleviate the strains caused by this decision of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Now, as I understand it, other states, at least some other states, have lab analysts typically there to testify. Is this just something where Virginia is just going to have to change its funding and allow them to also testify instead of just furnishing a paper document?
Well, I think the other states that have successfully met the new test established by the Supreme Court actually have statutes that allow for lab analysts to be present in court at the request of the defense attorney, and that is obviously what we want to pursue in Virginia, is putting the burden back on the defense counsel or the defendant to request these lab analysts appear. Right now, all they have to do is stand up in court and say, "I object, Judge. The lab analyst isn't here," and the case is either dismissed or postponed, and that's really going to back us up. So we need a system in place where we meet the constitutional test established by the Supreme Court that puts the burden back on the defense counsel to make these requests. And I think if we achieve that, we will probably find the right balance again, where lab analysts are not required to appear in each and every case. We have one of the best lab systems in the nation, and there's no reason to believe that our lab analysts need to be present to testify about what their findings are.
Now, you've already asked for a bill to be drawn up. What is your proposed solution?
Well, it's that very thing, Bob. The day I heard this decision, obviously, we're a part-time legislature, so we all have to maintain a day job, if you will. Mine is, as you said, as a prosecutor. So the day we heard about this in my prosecutor office, I got on the phone and called Legislative Services and asked them to prepare a bill that would meet the constitutional test established by this new Supreme Court case. And the bill essentially does what I just told you. It puts the burden back on the defendant to request these lab analysts to be present. Look, this decision stands to really upset the whole apple cart here in the criminal justice system in Virginia. Thousands of DUI and drug offenders cases are on the line literally each and every day. And I'm glad the governor decided to pull us back into special session, and I'm glad I've already got these bills drawn up and ready to go when we hit the ground, so we can hit the ground running. So
is the thought, Todd, that something will happen where the defense attorneys can notify you ahead of time that we want the lab analyst there, and in many cases they won't bother, or they won't feel like the need will be there, so it won't be like they'll be appearing in every case?
Yes, sir. I think that's exactly right. We will put the burden back on them, and I think in most cases they trust the system, and unless they have some reason to require an analyst be present, they're in many cases not going to bother, and in many cases trust the system that it is working as well as it always has. But again, this has thrown a monkey wrench into the works, this new decision, and it's very easy for a defense attorney now on the day of trial to stand up and say, I object, Your Honor, and we want the lab guy here. So we're going to try and fix it.
Okay. Todd Gilbert represents the 15th District of Virginia. Delegate, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bob.
And now let's send it back to Kay in Harrisburg.